Alright, welcome to Adam Pinz's Garage and Fabrication. Today we are working on the 2008 Audi A4 2.0T Quattro. And if you watch some of my other videos, then you know I like ECS tuning. I ordered a lot of my stuff from them. They got great prices. They got kits available for different repair things and just really great site. Check it out if you've got a German car. They've got stuff for Porsche and Volkswagen and Audi and Mercedes. I think pretty much all the German manufacturers. So I buy all my Audi stuff from them. And so what we're doing today is lower control arms on the driver's side. I got, and correct me if I'm saying this wrong, Febi control arms. They are made by Bilstein, which is a great company. If you know anything about Bilstein, their shock absorbers, when they sell you a shock absorber for a specific car, they actually test it. They change the valving and test it on that car. A lot of shock manufacturers will just give you a generic valving that works really great with some cars and maybe not so great with other cars. And I mean, most people won't notice, but if you're looking for something that's going to work better, Bilstein really puts more time and effort into their products. And already I can see, the quality. This just looks like a really good quality part. This is the front lower control arm with ball joint. And this is the rearward lower control arm with ball joint. They are really pretty, really light too. That one comes with a new nut. This one does not. It does not come with a nut. That's alright. I will survive. I'm guessing somebody probably got the wrong part at some point and dropped the nut out of the box or something. Something happened, because obviously they do come with nuts. And if this is your first time looking at Audi suspension, they've got a really cool setup here. So here's your front lower. Mounts to your coilover shock, and your rear lower sits like this. Wait a sec. Do I got that upside down? Yeah, I do. Okay. So one mounts in the top, one mounts in the bottom. You have two lower ball joints, and also two, sorry about the lighting, two upper ball joints. Now, I did some reading a while back. I wasn't sure why Audi had went through all this trouble with all these links, and I finally found something, and once again, stealing information from somebody, and I don't know who it was. I apologize. I read things and then I don't remember who I read it from. But, so this was designed to reduce torque steer. And it never clicked. Audis are so smooth. You can be on the throttle in a corner. You don't feel any torque steer. It didn't really click until I read that article. And, yeah, all this suspension geometry. So you can mash the throttle hard in a corner and you don't, like my Subaru, You mash the throttle hard into a corner, you feel it jerk the wheel. And that's torque steer for you. So, props to Audi for finding a solution to that, making these cars drive so nice. And also because you have 4 ball joints instead of 2, things just don't wear out as fast. So that's pretty cool. You've got wear split up between 4, whereas other cars it's all the forces on 2 ball joints and they tend to wear out. So this car has 100 and it's coming up on 160. It's like 157 or something like that. And I guarantee you that these are original ball joints. And I think only one of them is showing play. Not even anything crazy, but it's starting to chew my tires, so needs to be done. And yes, I did see the ripped boot. Don't care. I drove my Ranger for, oh shoot, like 3 years with ripped boots on my ball joints. Kept greasing them. Till there's play, they do not need to be replaced. If you're picky about it, yeah, okay. Because dirt and grime can get inside it now, yes. But don't let anybody tell you that you have to replace it for a ripped boot. Wait till there's play. Why throw away a good part? You could get another 20,000 miles out of that depending on where you're driving. If you're driving down a lot of dirt roads or you're doing some off-roading, which you probably shouldn't in your Audi car, but hey, I've seen some strange things. So if you do go where there's a lot of dirt and dust, then it may be cost effective to just replace them. But personally, this car mostly sees highway and regular in-town streets. I'm not replacing it till it's showing play. But back to the show. Let's get the old ones out, and then we'll stick the new ones in. Alright, old one is out, and man, am I bushed. Yeah, you'll hear dad jokes, I'm sorry. So, the Volkswagen Audi original control arms are more expensive. But it appears you do get more for your money with those. While these Febby ones look like a good quality, there is a noticeable difference in the size of the ball joint. So think about that when you're buying your parts. I will say that the Febby ones were much more into my price range, and I'm sure they'll last quite a long time, but if you're looking to put the best quality parts, sometimes factory stuff is good, and it appears that way with your Audi Volkswagen control arms ball joints. So thought I'd give you that little bit of intel. So to get this bad boy out, there's our spot on the subframe where it bolts into. So underneath, and I'm going to try and get you a camera angle, you see that access port? There's a nut in under there, and the bolt slides out that way. Now underneath there is a plastic shield which appears to protect your brake lines. You could pop that out of the way, get you a little more space. I didn't. I opted to fight with it a little bit. 18 millimeters, which you're going to need for both the nut on the ball joint and also for the nut and the bolt. This here is your bolt. It's pretty long-winded, so the first half of it comes out and you got plenty of room, and then it gets close to the unibody of the car. That's when I had to stop with my ratchet wrench because I no longer had clearance to use it, and I had to open end wrench it the rest of the way, which was tedious and I hated it, but it really wasn't that bad. Just keep spinning it and it will come out. It'll fit. Don't worry, there is room. Get yourself a pickle fork. Though I don't know why they call it a pickle fork. You ever try to stab a pickle with that? Not very easy. Try it sometime. Or don't. Probably shouldn't. You don't want grease on your pickles. Or do you? Just kidding. Enough talk of greasy pickles. People are going to think this is some kind of weird adult show. So I popped that loose with the pickle fork. One thing to watch out for is if you're removing with a pickle fork, you can see that the ball joints are quite close together. So if you're doing one at a time and using the pickle fork, be careful not to hit your boot on the other ball joint, because you will damage it, and then it's a bad day, and then you have to cry and call your mommy. But it's really not that bad. So you're gonna pop that one in. I've opted to do them one at a time. You could just take them both out and do them both at the same time, but I'm doing one at a time. That's what I feel like doing right now. I don't know that it's any better that way. I just feel like doing it that way. So I'm going to put this one in. I am going to put the bolt in the subframe first. That will make a difference. It'll be easier. You can move the arm around a little bit and you'll be able to slide the bolt in. And actually, thinking back on it now, probably if I had popped the ball joint first with the pickle fork, I may have had an easier time getting the bolt out. For your information. Don't make my mistakes. Do better. Do better things with your life. But yeah, I'm going to pop this guy in there, and then we'll move on to the next one. Alright, changed my mind. I'm allowed to do that, right? So, what I did was I left that one undone, because thinking about it, if I needed to use the pickle fork, which I didn't, but if I did, it would run into the brand new boot on the other ball joint. So I left that one undone, which worked out fine. The sway link didn't want to unbolt until I got the whole front of the car up so that the suspension is sagging the same on both sides, because you end up with tension if one side's compressed on that, and it's harder to get it undone. As soon as I got it up, it came undone pretty easy. You'd want a 13mm box end wrench, a regular wrench, because the ratchet wrench will not fit that. It won't fit between the shock body right there and the nut itself. That nut will not spin. Well, I mean, it will spin, but it's not supposed to. It's supposed to be solid into the bushing right there. The bolt on the other side is what's going to spin, and it's supposed to spin. So that is a 16mm. You unbolt that. Your sway bar is disconnected. And then 18mm both sides for your coilover strut assembly here. That unbolts that bolt, and 18mm for the bolt in the back as well, and 18 millimeter for the nut. So pretty easy, mostly 18 millimeters. I did use a trick instead of the pickle fork. If you can get in there and you can get a good swing on it, if you smack the knuckle where the stud goes in, like, sorry, try to get a light on there. Smack it right there. You don't want to mushroom it and damage it, but you give it a really good whack with a 32 ounce ball peen. I think that's 32 ounce. That size seems to work the best. It rattles the metal at a certain frequency, and that one, for whatever reason, that frequency seems to work. Smaller hammers don't seem to work so well. Bigger hammers don't seem to work so well. So that's the only automotive hammer that I have, really, aside from hammers and dollies for knocking dents out, but that's a whole different skill. So I popped that out. What you may run into is it looks like you need to pull the CV shaft to get that ball joint pulled out of there. Wrong. You don't need to pull the CV shaft. Don't bother pulling it. This is a torque to yield bolt for the CV. Torque to yield. One-time use. You can buy those at ECS Tuning. I actually have an extra one on hand just in case I need it. It's good to have at least one or two on hand if you're going to be doing your own maintenance on your Audis. There is a couple different sizes, so make sure you get the right one. I think there's a couple different sizes on that. Just make sure you get the right one. I'm having a brain fart moment here. Anyways, so you don't need to pull the CV shaft out because you can't seem to get the clearance. Just undo your shock, undo your sway bar, and pull the bolt right out for your control arm bushing right here. Now when pulling the control arm bushing out of here, I'm sorry, you can't really see very well. Let me get down on the creeper, get you good. So there's your bolt. Now, see that hole up in there? In that bracket? Your bolt will slide out and up into that hole. They gave you clearance so it'll come out. Pull it all the way out. When I went to put it back in, I was like, why is it not going in? Then I remembered, oh yeah, that's because when it came out, it went into this hole up in here. So put it into that hole and then slide it right in. Except you will fight it a little bit. Getting it positioned. I used the 2 pry bars to get it positioned and then pop the bolt in. But so undo that, and then once everything's undone, and then you can tip the control arm at an angle that the ball joint just pops out of place. So then when you put it back together, you pop the ball joint into the hole, start your nut so it doesn't fall out of place, and then it is a little bit of a fight getting your bolt into there. But I had a pry bar. Let me see if I can get a light here. Between the sway bar and the control arm, pry bar to pry up, and then another one in behind to push it outward and line up the hole. The shock was a little bit of aligning as well, but not quite as much of a fight. It was alright. and it's a little bit trying to get your sway link in as well, unfortunately. So putting the bolt back in on the rearward control arm, I just kind of got everything lined up. I did the bolt on the bushing first and got it kind of lined up, started, a couple taps with a hammer, it slid right in, and then got my nut on it and everything. And then the bolt, you just line up and slide into place, or the stud for the ball joint, just line up, put in place, put the nut on it, good to go. So that wasn't too awful bad. The front one is definitely a bit more involved. I think torques for those, the rear bolt was like 52 foot-pounds and then 55 on that one. I don't remember what the ball joints torques were. Make sure to look them up. I didn't actually torque those. I went with German spec, good and tight. That's typically what I use on most suspension components, aside from pinch bolts. So pinch bolts like these up here, like that one right there, only torque spec I could find on that one was 33. I pulled that off thinking I could get enough movement to get that lower out of there, but that was a no, so I had to find a torque spec on that. The pinch is 33 foot-pounds, and which is 45 Newton meters, and the top bolt was 7 Newton meters, which I don't remember what the conversion is on that. When I tightened the bolts on the bushings, you only have to do it for the ones on the bushings. I used my jack with a block of wood up underneath, and you raise the suspension up to about where the ride height should be, or at least close. And the reason you do that is so that if you tighten it with the suspension sagged, the bushing is going to have to flex upward to its ride height, and then when you hit a bump it's flexing even farther, which can cause the bushing to tear over time. So if you get it to its ride height, tighten it down, then both directions are the same amount of movement and it doesn't tear. So remember to do that. And these, are not too bad. It'd be easier on a hoist. Looking to get one in the future here, but till then I gotta tough it out like everybody else on jack stands. So that's our lower control arm bushings, or lower control arms / ball joints. My play is all gone, which is awesome. So now I can try to set my alignment and kill my tire wear. And my steering wheel will end up being straight once I'm set, which would be awesome, because it hasn't been straight since we got the car. I think that ball joint's been going bad since we got it. It's just now starting to show play, so I'm probably gonna have to do some more ball joints and tie rods in the future, because I got some ripped boots and they will go bad eventually, but I'll change them as I need them. I would recommend doing the ball joints in pairs at very least. They do sell complete kits if you want to go crazy and just do them all in one shot. That is the most recommended way of doing it. That way they are all fresh at the same time. You don't have one bushing causing an issue, then you can't figure out which one it is. It's how they recommend to do these suspensions. But if you don't have the budget to do $500 or $600 worth of ball joints in one shot, then yeah, do them in pairs. Worst case, one at a time, but preferably in pairs. And best results are going to be all at one shot. I think I covered everything. Sorry, I'm getting pretty tired and a little loopy. Yeah. Well, keep on wrenching, guys.